everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
I mean,
Certainly do.
The best films just capture that.
The best way to market and advertise your business is through story, right?
Mm-hmm.
We market, we tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
If people can get deep enough into your story of who you are, how you actually got to where you are in your business, they're going to appreciate it more. And I tell people this all the time. I'm like, you know what really got me into music when I was young was VH1 Behind the Music.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was a short doc about how that song came to be. They would show the video, but then they would get into the
Behind
actual
the
singer-songwriter behind the scenes. How did you come up with this? Where are you from? What made you think of that? What was this lyric mean? And after that, I was like, man, it just had this explosion of story in my brain that so many things can come out of story and so many powerful things really can resonate with you in story. And it gave me an appreciation for the music, and now it gives me appreciation for business and people as I move on.
Welcome to Under the Knife, the podcast where we cut into topics such as politics, life advice, and medicine, and we do this with the precision of a licensed orthopedic surgeon. I'm your host, Dr. Craig Green, an orthopedic surgeon and elected public official. Tell me something interesting about Wayne.
Tell you something interesting about Wayne. That's a great way to start. Wayne, I don't know if there's many interesting things about Wayne. He was always the class brainiac, if you will. He was a pretty decent athlete. Yeah. So there was a group of us cousins that were all around the same age, so we always grew up playing sports together and had a great time.
How many cousins are there?
Oh, you're going to get me on this one. I think there's 26 first cousins on that side of the family. So there's quite a few of us. Waggenspack's running around Louisiana. Yeah,
I don't know. Everybody can spell that, but they spell it differently every time, right?
They certainly do, and they say it differently. You should hear how some of the media butchers my name.
Speaking of media, tell us about your world.
So I'm by trade a film producer, but
how'd you get into that?
I actually started acting here at LSU. I got into theater for a little bit. I met a guy who was wanting to make short films, and I made a short film with him. I was his star, if you will.
What was the name of it?
It was Dog Eat Dog, which is a long time ago.
Yeah.
But he ended up moving to New York, and he was like, hey, man, do you have any ambition of maybe pursuing this any further? And I was like, absolutely. Baton Rouge, just really, I was kind of piddling through school, didn't really know what I wanted to do, following my mother as an architect, my father as a civil engineer, figured I'd get into engineering at some point, but it didn't spark my interest. I loved movies. I love stories. I love the passion of, how we can broadcast that in a medium that everybody can be entertained. And so I moved with him to New York, tried to be an actor, started losing my hair, which actually was very similar to yours.
Really?
And then got behind the camera and then came home, went to UNO, figured I'd be in Los Angeles, right after I finished school. And little did we know, the film industry blew up around me, and I have been working on movies ever since.
I want to get to that, but tell us about acting. Do you miss it?
No, I actually feel like I, kind of have to put that on a lot. I do a lot of politics. So, you have to bite your tongue in what it is that you believe in for the cause that you're actually out there pursuing.
I hear that.
So there's quite a bit of that, if you will. And I think there's a lot of politicians that are actors as well that are pretty damn good at it.
This is true.
Yeah.
Will you ever run for office?
No. Everybody asked me that. And it's not a passion of mine. It was for a little bit of my family. My grandfather, Dick Richard Schneider, was a lobbyist here and did a lot of great things in politics here in the state of Louisiana.
So what do you lobby for?
I lobby for the tax credits here in the state of Louisiana. The film industry is a robust business. We have over $1 billion in sales that we bring to the state every year. People don't realize that we're an economic engine. I mean, all the money that comes in from the film industry, about 90% of it.
Walk us through that, because I know it seemed like it was a big deal at one point, and then there was a lull, and then it's come back.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
This might be a
101.
Are you ready? So tax credits began at about 1992 as the first actual tax credit. 2002 is when we really ramped it up here in the state of Louisiana and made it more profitable for movies to come and do business.
And
here
for our
in the
listeners,
state.
the whole point is to bring the economic engine to Louisiana. Is
Correct.
that correct?
It's an industry that was not here in the first place. You're trying to obviously bring dollars from outside the state into the state. You're incentivizing like they do for oil and gas, like they do for a lot of the healthcare, like they just did with the new battery the new EV battery facility here that's coming in. It's the same type of incentive program. You come in, but you spend the money here, then you get a credit for actually spending the money here.
So is it win-win for the state and for the movie industry?
So, well, in our eyes, absolutely. What you will start to see in media is figuring out what happens every 2 years when the budget needs to be balanced. And they look at us and they say, well, wait a second, only 23 cents comes back to the state of Louisiana. Well, that's just the start, because $6.25 comes back to the economy for every dollar that's doled out. Because what happens is when you put $1 in this economy that's spent, it ripples all the way throughout. So it might not just be the movie that's coming in and spending. They're out hiring and they're out utilizing vendors and third parties that obviously grow a massive economy around it. And $1 billion is nothing to balk at when they come in every year.
So what other states besides us in California do that?
We were the first one to get it started. California actually followed suit long after. There are now 41 states in the United States that have a tax credit program.
Does that make it competitive for us?
Absolutely.
Or are we still, because we're the first, we have an advantage?
We do have an advantage. We have fantastic crew. We have a really deep crew base, which is very important.
In the lobbying sector?
We have and the lobbying sector. No, we have a crew base in the talent of what it is that we can provide for the movies that are coming in from California and New York to produce here.
Now, is that behind the camera type stuff?
Well, you have both, in front of the camera and behind the camera.
Really?
You have a lot of great actors here from that are local from Louisiana that have gone on to do great things in the industry. But look, we have great crew. We have great diversity of locations. We really do have an opportunity here because, we have a little bit of a lower basis of income. What it is it takes to actually produce a movie is cheaper here. And so we are obviously very competitive. We're probably number 3 or number 4 in the United States of the best program that you can actually come and use.
My daughter goes to USC and she was all excited because she was on the airplane with Pierce Brosnan.
Oh,
Pierce,
yeah?
Is that his name?
The Pierce Bronson?
Yeah. And
he's done a few movies
here. He
here.
just did a couple movies here.
Yeah, he sure did. You see a lot of stars. You're starting to see more and more of them. And they're also comfortable here. You don't have the paparazzi.
Right.
People, in New Orleans especially, sometimes in Baton Rouge, they get a little bit more hyped up about it, like you said.
Yeah.
Like I did the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn, so
Yeah.
the security on that and the people that were trying to get there.
That.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Emily, do you know Emily? She just won for state rep. Emily Chenevert.
She is now our House representative. Yeah, we support her very well. She just came and spoke to us at our last committee meeting.
She's going to be a great rep.
She's fireball. I love her.
But she got me out there to help with some people that, twisted ankles and stuff.
Yeah, it happens.
Funny story, I didn't realize the movie industry was that big, and I was on an airplane. My daughter goes to USC. I was visiting her, and I was on the way back, and I see this guy, and we go to the bathroom. He's passing each other, and I'm always that guy, like, I don't want to not say hi if I think I know someone. So I'm like, do I know you? You look familiar. And he was a jerk. He was like, no, and sat down. I'm like, well, that guy's kind of rude, So I go back to my show. I'm watching Billions, and I'm like, oh, God.
Love Billions. Is it Paul Giamatti?
No, it was the artist guy.
In the movie. I mean, in a couple of the episodes. Yeah. I know you're talking about. I'm not going to. I think he's from Louisiana.
Don't I know you from the gym? And he's like, no. I mean, he's a bowed up guy, And then I open the thing. I'm like, golly, I know him from somewhere. I know him from Billions. But he was, I guess, filming something in New Orleans.
Yeah. I think he's from here.
Is he really?
I really think he's either from the North Shore, from what I believe. We'll have to double check on that.
Well, if he's listening, maybe you weren't that much of a jerk anyway. But
not all of them are. I'll have to say.
Not all of them are. Yeah. Some want to be normal people.
Yeah, they try to be.
So what's the next step with tax credits, or is it just keep it going?
It is. It's keep it going. And we just successfully passed a 6-year extension on our tax credit program, so we moved it out to 2031. My goal now, I'm now the newly elected president of Louisiana Film Entertainment Association, and my overall goal is to try to change the hearts and minds of lobbyists, of politicians, so that we can continue lobbying. It is tough, but here's what's interesting. People don't realize what activity happens on a film set. You have anywhere between 200 to 500 people working, hands-on working on a film set on a daily basis. We provide over 10,000 jobs in the state of Louisiana.
So how much of it is just telling the politicians it's a math problem?
Well, we do that over and over again. The problem is that's getting blurry. They're hearing it. It's in their face. They understand that. All right, well, tell me what else. What is it in my community, and how does it help out my community? So we've gone one step further and required the state to take on accounting practices that allow you to put zip codes for every single dollar that's spent, so that we can calculate and track everything in the state and where it's going. And that's the ultimate goal.
So how much of this happens, we know about Celtic Studios, is that right?
Yeah, it's here in Baton Rouge.
Versus just out and about.
So you mean at a studio versus on location?
Yeah.
Well, I'd say actually there's probably more on location than there is in studio, because you only have approximately, I'd say, maybe a little under 1 million square feet of space, actually probably less than that, maybe around 500,000 square feet of stage space here in the state of Louisiana. And so you can only host so many projects, so many episodic series, so many feature films. You have a lot of independent film that comes in and is out on location. So if you count the number of days, you're probably like 70 to 30% 70% out on location, 30% on stage, if I had to guess.
How much money do you think that the film industry brings to Louisiana on an annual basis?
Well, I mentioned that. It's $1 billion a year.
Wow.
On average. Yeah.
And then by having tax credits, that's not giving up all of the tax revenue, right?
So what you have to understand is we have a 25% base tax credit, and you got a lot of kickers that go on top of that. We give out $180 million a year in tax credits for $1 billion that comes in. So if I'm selling you on this program and you're a state legislator and I say, look, you're giving me 180, but I'm bringing $1 billion into the state, 370 million of that goes directly to local payroll. So essentially, you're taking $180 million of your tax revenue and you're giving to the residents of the state, and then you're getting another $630 million in spend on top of that. To me, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, no doubt, because every bit of that gets filtered through other taxes too.
Absolutely. It certainly does. And then you also have to realize we have, what people like to argue about the brain drain. Where are our students going? What are they interested in? You know what the fastest curriculum in the U.S., not just in the state, in the U.S. is? Digital media.
Wow.
What are we? We're a digital media medium. So you have so many people that are jumping right off from college into the film industry here, and it's allowing for them to obviously spawn off, either create other things, become their own individual entrepreneur and create their own project, or move their way up in the film industry.
Well, I would think that the film, $1 billion, where does that rank in other states? Like oil and gas is probably, it used to be a lot, but it's still probably up there. It's got to be one of the bigger.
Oil and gas is the biggest, but there's a lot of deceivedness on how you can figure out what those numbers are. They hide a lot of that. We give a lot of money to oil and gas, but for some reason they don't want to give that number away.
Where is film in the
pecking order?
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you, but it's not going to be where oil and gas is. Let's put it.
But it's got to be top 5, $1 billion a year.
It's definitely top 5 on what we bring in for sure.
I mean, and could that be ramped up?
Absolutely, but the problem is you've capped the program at 180 million, so there's no growth. We understand that. We want to be a good partner to the state, so we've allowed for that holdback to say, all right, well, we're going to stop it at 180 million because that's what over the last 10 years we've really seen come in. When the growth is when we can actually grow is when we actually bust that cap open a bit, raise it up to maybe 250, 300 million.
Where does the 180 million fit in, say, the central limit theorem of other states? Like what are other states of the 41?
So the biggest one right now is Georgia. They don't have a cap. They have an uncapped program, but they also don't have a very good regulated program. What Louisiana has done has really done a great job of regulating who's coming in, who's not taking advantage of the program, and money's being spent properly.
How is it regulated?
Well, it's regulated because we have caps on different things. You're not going to be able to give an actor any more than, or you're going to cap off at $3 million on a salary for an actor. You're going to make sure that any of the infrastructure that's done here is done here, and it's not going to be underutilized. You're going to take advantage of some of that. And so the bigger things that really come in are what we're starting to find in Georgia is that you'll have a project that will come into Georgia. They'll have an actor that will play one day in Georgia and will play 30 days somewhere else. What they'll do is they'll put the payroll in Georgia for that one day and get the entire tax credit. So that's how the biggest fraud ever came in. We caught that early on and said, you're not doing that. And so that's how we've regulated the program to make sure that the spending is happening here and that the people are spending the money here locally, and that's what's
so the best would be ROI. Regulated but uncapped.
It would be, but we understand that we have budget woes in Louisiana. We're not a cash-rich state. We don't have 5 Fortune 50 companies like Georgia does who can go out and take advantage of big business buying up tax credits. So we want to be a good steward to not only the state, but also to the film industry. So we have a nice, happy medium of how we can figure that out. Once we can start to get into the hearts and minds of legislators and they start to recognize, wow, 10,000 people every year are getting a job. How can we make that 15? That's when we can start ratcheting it up. But it's getting people to set, seeing the amount of material that's being bought and built on a set, seeing the amount of actual craft and crew that's actually out there working, and the different diversity of skills, not only diversity of skills, but diversity of people that are working. It becomes a really vital engine to the state. And I'm trying to get that in the hearts and minds of any legislator that'll listen. Oh, you've got a lot of them that do. A lot of them are right behind us. But every year you've got to train more.
What did y'all start at?
So,
did it start at 180 million, or what was the?
No, there was no cap on the program when we began. We just became so big so fast that unfortunately with the Jindal administration, he had a huge budget woe when he was on his way out, and they had to figure out a way to stop the gap in the budget. So they took ours back and said, look, let's cap this program to make sure it doesn't go off the rails. And so they put us at $180 million, knowing that was the average that we had. So it hurt us because they froze the buyback that year to say, hey, we need to figure out how to get $180 million just in this year alone. but we're going to freeze the buyback, which means it plummets the value of the tax credits to next to nothing. And so a lot of the industry looked at us and said, well, that program is going to be dead for a little while, 12 months. And then as soon as it opened back up, we had to go out and advertise, and then we became pretty big again within about 3 years of that freeze on the buyback.
So where of the 41, where do we rank as far as...
We're fourth or fifth. People can argue.
Okay.
We're fourth in the majority of most people's eyes. So California, New York, Georgia.
Is that in number of movies produced or spend? Or
Yes.
Okay.
It would be number of movies produced, spend, and then obviously the value of the program here, the tax credit program. Yeah.
And so it sounds like it's only going up.
Yeah, I mean, look, the sky's the limit. And as I said, especially with technology these days and how fast we're producing content, I mean, look at you here. You've gotten into the game figuring out that content is king, especially video content. People want to see things. They don't necessarily want to read constantly. They want to hear people actually talk about it. They want to see emotion.
Right.
They actually value that, and that's
long
what we're
form
see.
content, I think, is making a comeback.
Long form is, short form is going to be there, and your generation below us and below them is addicted to short form, and but long form is always
there.
there.
About 7 seconds.
But I think once your mind matures, you get into a long form that you really appreciate because you want to be told everything in a story. You don't want to just be entertained very quickly.
Right.
Long form content in podcast formats is really taken off, which is going to again begin to help the video content as well, because people are going to want to sit there and value a story.
Right. So I have to tell you, my favorite class in college was. I had a speech communication minor, and as a upper level speech, and it was performing Southern literature.
Oh, interesting.
Faulkner. We had to perform a Faulkner novel.
Just saying that name sounds fun.
I know, right? So, will you ever go back in front of the camera?
No, like I said, I do it for politics. I do a lot of the media and communications for our organization at LFEA. I doubt I will. I mean, I'm sure somebody will ask me to do something, and I wouldn't mind having a cameo. I don't have any problem. But it is not my interest to be the star of a show. What
about on the federal level? Is there anything you lobby on the federal level?
No, we don't necessarily dive into the federal level. We allow for that to play out. There's not a lot of control that we have. On the state level, obviously, we do as much as we can here. We do have friends in the federal level if we ever need to call upon them, but we haven't had to necessarily jump into that.
Well, it seems like you're a real leader, and Louisiana's a real leader in the film credit space.
I try my best. Look, it's funny, you hear a politician say, I'm a man of the people. Well, I am. I honestly am trying to work for the people who want to work and need the jobs that we're trying to bring to the state of Louisiana. So I'm always trying to keep our program healthy and alive and sustainable, not only for my business at the Ranch Film Studios, but for all the businesses that are trying to obviously pop up here. I'm a producer. I'm an independent filmmaker as well, so I have story at heart. And I really want to see the roots of independent film really take heart here and become something that, they can't take away from us.
What you bring up that's a really good point is everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
I mean,
certainly do.
The best films just capture that.
Think about it this way. What is the best way to market and advertise your business is through story, right? We market, we tell a story. If people can get deep enough into your story of who you are, how you actually got to where you are in your business, they're going to appreciate it more. And I tell people this all the time. I'm like, what really got me into music when I was young was VH1 Behind the Music, because it was a short doc about how that song came to be, and I had such an appreciation for the lyrics.
With the bubbles?
I don't know if it was with bubbles, but early on, it was just, they would show the video, but then they would get into the actual singer-songwriter behind the scenes. How did you come up with this? Where are you from? What made you think of that? What was this lyric mean? And after that, I was like, man, it just had this explosion of story in my brain that so many things can come out of story, and so many powerful things really can resonate with you in story. And it gave me an appreciation for the music, and now it gives me appreciation for business and people as I move on.
When I think about that too, like think about the Bible. If Jesus wanted to, he'd tell a story, a parable, and that was the meaning was in the story. We all gathered as a collection of conformity because we want to hear what it is that's going to motivate us and move us through life. Absolutely. Well, Jason, thanks for being on Under the Knife, our podcast. Hopefully we're part of the digital media wave here, and thanks for all that you do.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I think you are. You're doing well, and look forward to being a guest.
Where can people find you?
They can find me anywhere on social media through Jason Waggenspack, or you can also go to wearetheranch.com and check out all of our stuff.
Got it. Everybody check it out. Thanks, Jason.
Appreciate it, bud.
Take care. Thank you for joining us today, and a big thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to this surgical exploration of politics, healthcare, and life. I've been your host, Dr. Craig Green. Remember to stay informed, stay sharp, and join us next time to see which of life's topics we'll dissect under the knife.